they put that on humans who didn't know better or who were declared booty and prize. And it doesn't mean that we have not been forced to use them, but know exactly what they are. Passports are not for humans. Passports are for shipping and bottomry instruments of trade. That get that very clear. Whenever there's a discussion of passport, it's not for the sentient living man and woman. It's for shipping lanes only. However, they've crossed over and put that on humans under nom de guerre in order to claim the people as booty and prize, which is exactly what they have been doing. And you all know that that's what has been going on. And this is for people that get caught up in the arguments about, I got a passport, a U.S. passport. Yeah, well, you're shipping. I'm not condemning that. I'm just saying don't try to think that it is a proper identity, because it's not. It means you're a bottomry instrument being traded on the waters under United States Corporation Company and are essentially stock. That's the fact. So therefore, all the work that it should be doing or going on in our communities should be the rightful acknowledgement of true identification cards relative to nationality and pedigree. Private corporate contracts of what you call adhesion do not arrive at the lawful or erudite designation as identity for any living human man or woman or child.
Let me see, where does it put that up? This question about, okay, here we go. Lee Colton, is it true if all posts are preceded by all rights reserved and retained, they will not block the truth that is posted?
The reason why you do that is because you're constantly countering Rome's established claim that you're dead. That's why that is done. That is a prerequisite in all written instrumentalities to designate that jurisdiction over in personam jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, or territorial jurisdiction is assumed at any point in your relationship or communication with them. Thus, that's why all rights reserved is there. So it's not necessarily wrong or questionable in any other angle of thought. That's its designation. Because remember, one of the things that the members of the Crown are trained in is to assume jurisdiction if jurisdiction is never challenged. As soon as they interchange with you, they operate from the position of assumed jurisdiction. That's how they operate. So almost, we have the uncomfortable situation of always having to make the prerequisite that we are reserving and preserving all of our rights, liberties, etc. Of course, it is it's an unlawful burden, and it is unnecessary burden. However, it is a burden that's imposed upon people because the members of the Roman Curia know that they're occupying our land, and they know that their business is human trafficking, and they know that they're trespassing and abusing the people, which is why they operate from the position at all times of assumed jurisdiction. Your activity, including writing in small case, if that's what you choose to do, is to reject an assumption of jurisdiction, and thus reject any assumed right of power of attorney or any assumed right of trespassing on any of your liberties or your hereditaments. And these different methodologies that you'll see different people use at different times, all of them relate to that very principle that you presented. Yes.
Here's a question from Amun Atsube, Brother Grand Sheik. What do you think about sending delirium out with our liens?
Well, you could even do a note, because the delirium represents a note. And a note coming from a sovereign or the real people of the land is more legitimate than any promissory note created by a de facto bankrupt foreign human trafficking entity operator or owner, which is what we've been dealing with today. And so, is there any criticisms that will come from people? And it will. And some of the criticisms may be justified. However, upon principle and examination, they don't stand, because all the note really is necessary is your claim from the sovereign. If it was written on a piece of toilet paper. A lot of people don't know that even in the operations of the de facto platforms, they don't tell people. But really, like, say for instance, if you had what you say a subdivisional relationship to an account with any bank system under the United States, and you didn't have a checkbook, you could write it on a piece of paper and it's a check. They don't tell you that because they don't want you to know the power. So what you just said is certainly a legitimate consideration, isn't it? However, you wouldn't give a de facto operator a legitimate instrument in the first place.
Right.
Because remember, one of the interesting things that people need to look at when they're dealing with members of the Roman Curia or the Crown is that one of the reasons they don't acknowledge de jure instrumentality because they are themselves known, and they know that they are criminals. They can't use de jure instrumentalities. Their mission is criminality. And it doesn't mean they're necessarily operating from a position of anger or hostility. Their operation. I think people really need to take a moment and really gather their thoughts and recognize that the operations of a colonist and a descendant of a colonist is extortion and exploitation. It is not to support the lifeblood of that people or land that they have colonized. Their operations, all of their legislation, though colored, evolves and revolves around exploitation and destruction by default. So when you look for them to do something right, it's almost like saying, how come Happy the Clown is always laughing? Because he's a clown. How come the thief stole my bike? That was the best bike my grandmom ever bought me. Because he's a thief. How come that guy is over here mistreating us and he's all racist and prejudiced and doing mean stuff to us and acting under the black codes? Because he's a colonist. It's personal, but it ain't at the same time. I think we have to put things in perspective. And also, as we do, we'll stop wasting our energy on false expectations. However, since they claim to be officers, hold them to that. That's what makes them uncomfortable. We already know that they're not going to honor Constitution and treaty. We already know that. The deal of it is, have we been doing so? The deal of it is, have we been conscious of our obligations? Now, just because they're corrupt don't mean that we're corrupt. So we should be struggling to be rightful, righteous, and just with all people in our communications with others, and look for the best in others and give them the best that's in us. However, when you see that evil, don't forget it. Because a lot of things that we're doing is really to wake you up, to make you recognize that we've been putting our trust in institutions and organizations that are really in their inception corrupt. But we keep expecting clean outcomes, which will never happen. However, as you release them and stop supporting them, they lose their power. That's the point of a lot of our conversations. They only live because you keep giving them your energy. experience is teaching you to stop doing that.
Ernest Lockett asked if you were saying that other nations are buying blacks/Americans.
The other nations already know better. The only time they even talk like that is when they're here doing business in the commercial venue, because they know our people are out to lunch and under psychological warfare operations. And very often, our people, in their own ignorance of what is also known as I like when some people have what you call a masochistic psychology.
Masochistic.
Masochistic. That means they like for the sadists to beat the shit out of them.
I guess
To stomp them.
Masochistic.
Masochistic. Yeah.
Masochistic.
Masochistic. Yeah. They already know that that's part of the so-called black community. So when you take that in consideration, particularly when you're doing trade and business, you already know that they have the burden when they come at the Maghreb of not necessarily knowing how to talk to us, even though they know that for the most part, economically, we make most people very wealthy who set up businesses in our communities. However, from a cultural point of view, or social point of view, they know that black culture is equated to dead culture. And it's a paradigm and a paradox for them to deal with us. However, by default, because we're here, it's our land, even though most of our people don't know it, and we make everybody rich, they deal with us in business. Outside of that, they try to minimize their contact so that they don't get contaminated. And it has nothing to do with your complexion. It has everything to do with the dead culture.
Bridge REH says, can you please comment on what is really going on in Haiti?
Haiti?
Yes.
Think, as an example, think of Leo Bator.
Toussaint?
Yeah, Toussaint. And the fact that he, with a few other Moors around him, were made a strong effort to reestablish the republic order of constitutional principles that are part of Muslim law at the Maghreb, which would include Haiti, and among the Carib Moors. So keep in mind the offer and the communications was made for all of the Asiatic Africans of the Western Hemisphere to participate with him. That part of the message from him is not often promoted, but that is the fact. This is one of the reasons why they murdered him, why they imprisoned him. And because that effort was made countering the bishopric and the Franciscan Brotherhood and their 12 orders that have been operating at North America, Haiti has been a designated target ever since. And also, Haiti has been a source for their not only keeping the Moors of the West consciously destabilized, politically destabilized, also has been used deliberately as a source for human flesh and organ sales transfers to both Europe and North America, with all of these so-called medical centers becoming small cities. So a lot of the organs that have been sold around the world are actually from the Phoenician and Bantu Moors of Haiti. That's a fact. But keep in mind, we're all family, y'all. So why are we continually allowing the hybrid Europeans up here faking as Americans to continue to feed on our people without speaking up?
Visionary asked if do you have the Moorish appellation for Toussaint Louverture by any chance?
The operations?
The Moorish appellation for him. You mentioned Toussaint
Yeah,
Louverture.
yeah.
Was he a babe?
Yes, look it up and then look up his missionary work and then look up the fact that they also took him to England and they imprisoned him also, just like they did Joale. You know, they claimed he died from pneumonia and stuff like that. It's BS. They tortured him.
Let me see. Okay. All right. Shanta Miller says how to nationalize children under 18.
The condition of the mother is the condition of the child.
So basically, you're
The
saying
condition of the mother is the condition of the child. Status of the mother is the status of the child. It's not an application, it's a claim.
okay. Baxtapilion says how can you avoid paying taxes to the Europeans?
Enforce the Constitution, thus the treaties. There you go. Straightforward, just like Drawley been telling these Moors for, 113, 14 years. And correct the status. And of course, you've been misclassified. As a matter of fact, Dr. Naila, because, so much is coming at us. I will bring a document, and I want to bring my cousin one in the near future. Truth. Many of you know I'm Truth. I'll bring my cousin on, and a lot of things that you all know that we've been working in the background for years. And I'm so actually proud of him. He's a very good spirit, very good spirit. And we will literally show you one of the documents of that, what you just said, in operation. However, a lot of times, and we've done this before with other active Moors, because you have so many treacherous Moors among us who have been, and particularly, I have to be honest with you all, with myself, I've had a few people come around me and have spent a lot of time with me over the years, but I already knew they were plants. I actually knew that. But for the sake of the people, a lot of things that I knew and know I have not said. But I've tolerated a lot of the backbiting, two-facedness, and treachery for the sake of the people that it would be done. So a lot of things that I would have ordinarily been more open with on a broader scale, I haven't been. But I will bring on the next class some documents. And also I'd like to get with my cousin and show you some of the work that's been done in the background to answer to what you have just now said or asked. Because for the most part, it's misclassification. And of course, when we tell people to correct their status, they because we have a lot of trolls among us and next to us in many cases. They've been trying to counter us. In other words, they smile in your face, stab you in the back type thing. But they only felt secure because they had their handlers in the background was backing them up. But one thing's for sure, when you have an issue of when you're you're in the ocean, right? And an octopus puts one of his suckers around you. And the octopus is quite large, and technically or basically you may be in a position from a physical point of view not to be able to overcome the grip or the power of the octopus. What I present to all of you over the years is this: concentrate on that tentacle that's on your arm, and the little knife that you have, cut that tentacle right there. And everybody do that. After a while, that octopus ain't so bad. This also goes with the trolls that have been around us who thought they were successful. The consciousness that's spreading like a fresher breath of air across the planet. Keep in mind, they only have survived because people have still believed in them. However, even with their cleverness, they won't be around too much longer either.
How do you use the Constitution and Treaty to get your fiat out of these fake investing financial institutions so that you can use the fiat to buy silver and gold?
Let me say this for one, and we've been telling people for years. We tell people stop putting the fiat into those venues in the first place. Number two, we told you before, we're telling you now, they're going to steal it. Number three, things are being done in the background, however, to restore you. That's in the truth later. However, because most of you have been hard-hearted and rebellious, most of us are going to feel a lot of pain in the next year to teach you a lesson. Because you've been told this information for decades and most of you didn't listen. Many of you criticized it. Most of you trolled it. And then many of you have followed the trolls who have been coming into the different venues and, causing disruption and confusion. However, things are moving in such a manner. And like I said last month, watch Uranus. When I said watch Uranus, I'm actually talking on multiple planes of life, truthfully. And I'm aware of the fact that when I said it, that some people may have thought I was talking just merely third dimensional, which I was not. You will learn and you will see, you will experience now. Because remember, the fiat is private commercial paper. It is not yours. It belongs to them, which is also why they tax it, which is why they confiscate it, and which is why they create what is called a double ledger. Write this